Trinity Forum, and I have the absolute pleasure of introducing someone I've known now for several decades to talk about the Binghamton Two Rivers Greenway. Mark Bowers worked for the Department of Transportation for 30 plus years. He envisioned the Greenway that many years ago and stuck around long enough to make it happen. And he gave me something to say, but I think there are a couple of words that I'm going to hit the highlights, and Mark can show you. When I think of Mark, I think of his community-based vision, his collaborative spirit, his resilience, and his stamina. And Mark never gives up. And that's one of the reasons we are as far along on the Greenway as you had envisioned that many years ago. So without further ado, introduce Mark Bowers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know Susan's been trying to get me here for a while, and apologize, but part of what's motivated this is that I've been retired now for almost 10 years from the DOT, and in my last years, I spent a decade among doing program and project management as a regional pedestrian and bicycle coordinator. So in retirement here, we've built this incredible infrastructure, and we work so diligently with municipalities to try and connect the dots. What's motivated this next phase is to try and create a friends group to support the Greenway, because you'll see we have over 17 miles of it built and a lot of connectivity, because that was one of the things we were trying to do was for pieces that have been built, if we're going to build something else, let's make sure it connects and we can build it out. So that picture there is a morning commute to Binghamton University on the Greenway system now. I didn't get a laugh. No, I'm joking. That's Susan's Binghamton bridge pedal. Okay, we're hoping that it becomes the commute to the university in years to come. But this was from last year's bridge pedal. That is police escorted 10-mile basically bicycle ride for all ages, and it started out in part to introduce people to the Greenway and to let them know it was here and it was an asset for them.
They had green shirts on, then we would believe you.
Yeah. That gave it away. The red shirts gave it away. So
go ahead. Well, the t-shirts are what we call it. The t-shirts are your ticket to ride at the bridge pedal. So every year there are different colors.
So basically, this is just a little overview of what we're going to try and cover today. I want to explain some of the origins of this. We're going to talk about what BMTS is, the Binghamton Metropolitan Planning Study, if you don't know what that is. We're going to ask why a friends group, why do we need that? We're going to bring you up to speed on the status of where things are. And then I'd like to have some discussion, because as part of this friends group, we're trying to get ideas from the public about what makes sense. So what's BMTS? BMTS is the Binghamton Metropolitan Transportation Study, and the map that you see, as the legend says, the dark green is their planning area. For any urban area with a population of over 50,000 people, based on the United States Census, they can have a metropolitan planning organization. The Metropolitan Planning Organization works with all of the individual municipalities. It's comprised of a policy committee at the highest level and a planning committee. The planning committee basically is the technical people in all of those municipalities, the highway superintendents, things like that. They develop projects for the urban area that are candidates for federal aid. And then there's a policy committee, and the policy committee is the one that approves those projects for what they call a TIP. I'll use a lot of acronyms, but I'll explain them all. The Transportation Improvement Program. So they put together a 5-year program, the MPO does, in conjunction with all the municipalities that you see here, the towns, cities, villages, of federal aid projects in the urban area, and that gets approved and paid for with federal funds. So you can hit the next one. Now, unfortunately, this is in a PDF format, so I can't fly these animated slides in as they were in the PowerPoint. But the one in the back was the 1977, bikeway plan that was done for a set of separate off-road and on-road bicycle facilities to encourage pedestrians and cyclists and to try and insulate them from traffic. That was in 1977. The second one that was here is the BMTS pedestrian and bicycle plan. Unfortunately, that didn't get done until 1996. So there was a significant gap in what people were hoping in the 70s and what actually materialized in 1996. And then the one you can see on the front was just 3 years later, where based on their study, the pedestrian and bicycle plan, they actually came up with a Greenway study. Okay, and the Greenway study included a number of things: a trail master plan, design guidelines, and an implementation strategy. And this is almost little after this was where I got involved, because this study, like a lot of things that happen in government, gets done. We spend a lot of money, consultants make money, and then it goes on the shelf and there's no implementers, you know? So these things have to have a champion, just like I'll talk about our friends group needs champions. So when I became the regional pedestrian and bicycle coordinator after retirement of someone in our office, I worked in the planning and program management office for the DOT in the state office building. I got together with BMTS, Scott Regal, wonderful young guy over there, and we became the face of, at the time, was the greater Binghamton Greenway. Okay, it's gone through a few iterations, which we'll talk about too. So if you could hit the next slide. And so based in this 1999 study, they came up with a strategy, okay, for, as you can see by the color scheme here, a system of off-road trails like you have in Vestal, like you have now between downtown and Route 434, like you have on the Shenango River Promenade. It also included, which are now signed, on-road assigned bike routes that have their own map. You've seen the bike signs around, little bike logo on there, bike route 7, bike route 11, those kind of things. And the Route 434 Greenway was highlighted on there because that at the time was one of our major endeavors. The next slide. So from this overall thing, what they came up with in this 1999 study was a strategy. And basically what you see here in all these rectangles and squares is a strategy for individual municipalities to take the lead on elements that were identified in their jurisdiction to go out and look for funds, okay, to build these off-road trail systems, multi-use trails. And so there's at least 6, maybe 7 different municipalities. You have City of Binghamton, you have the town of Vestal, you have the town of Shenango, there's Trail in Owego, their Riverfront Trail is included in this. You have the town of Union, things on the north side of the river, which aren't as developed, but we'll talk about some of those. So this was sort of a strategy for municipalities to look at elements within their communities. The other thing that was at the root of this was we basically wanted to try and follow the rivers, because the credible feature here, you don't have a lot of cities at the confluence of two rivers and those kind of things. So we wanted, as much as was feasible, to follow the rivers, which in hindsight here, we've been able to do. So in the study, this is just an example as you drill down on the study from the, you know, from the general to the particular. This was inset in that study that showed elements that could be built in and around the city of Binghamton within the river corridors, okay? So for each municipality, when you go through the report, there were suggestions like this for every one of those municipalities of where things could be built. Go ahead. So a little bit of status you could see here, and it's kind of hard to follow here. Existing trails, you can see Binghamton's got a lot of stuff done. If you think about it, think of Confluence Park as the hub. You can go all the way up the Shenango River, all the way up across Bevere Street. We work with the county, we widen the bridge, we put a trail underneath the bridge. You can go all the way up to the Northgate Plaza. When we did work at DOT, we bludgeoned them into putting bike lanes on Front Street, taking it from 4 lanes. It used to be 4 lanes, if you remember, to 3 lanes with a bidirectional center turn lane and bike lanes and sidewalks. God forbid you have sidewalks so people can walk. So you can see Binghamton has done a lot. Obviously, Vestal is very well known for the Vestal Rail Trail. Now you have the Vestal Rail Trail extension. You can see future connections, which I'm going to talk about there in the red. And also there are some trails. I don't know if people know this little section on the north side of the Chugnut Trail. People ever heard of the Chugnut Trail? It's a trail that runs behind Union Endicott High School. Okay, basically from where Route 26 goes over, there's a parking area there, and it goes behind the high school all the way over to where the bridge goes over to Vestal. So that's there, and there's also an extension, which I'll talk about, which is going to get built this summer. Yes.
Intended to go to the golf course or the Android golf course?
Well, yes.
Okay,
I'll say yes to that
Okay.
because I'll show you, we just led a contract just recently that they're going to build from the western terminus of that Chugnut Trail, which is at, I think it's Main Street that goes over to Vestal. From there, there's a little park there, Mercero Park, and then along the river to Griffin, the recently refurbished Griffin Park. So they're going to build that trail this summer, and it's also going to have a connection up to the top of Round Top, where there's another park at the top of Round Top, okay? And we just put this in here. This is that little section which we claim credit for. In Owego, the Owego Riverwalk that they have there behind their downtown area. That was done and it's signed as an element of the Two Rivers Greenway. Go ahead. And again, this is just some, what I'm going to drill down a little bit on here is what's interesting, these future connections, because all of this stuff in the village of Johnson City and the connection to the Vestal Rail Trail, and also the river bridge that used to carry coal and chemicals to Binghamton Pike and Plastic and Gowdy Station, that corridor is closed now for trains, okay? So there's no, Gowdy Station is closed, Binghamton Pipe and Plastic moved, so as you'll see in the next slide here, there's some movement, okay, to get those pieces of real estate to build the connectivity for the Greenway, which would be really critical for us. So go ahead. So what we have here is all of this yellow dotted areas that you see here are going to be included in a feasibility study. Right now, Broome County just submitted a grant to the federal government, so God only knows what will happen with that. Even though they did tell me they cleansed it of any language and words that might pop up in an AI search of their application that wouldn't be acceptable, but it's a federal grant. It's called a Bill grant. The intent of it is to do a planning and feasibility study, including preliminary design and any right-of-way impacts, okay, for what you see here in the dotted lines. And the critical elements for me is this connection here from the university to the Vestal Rail Trail, okay, and the rail spur that currently exists in Johnson City behind the College of Nursing and behind the pharmacy school that goes through, that used to carry coal to Gowdy Station. That includes the river bridge. So this feasibility study will look at securing the rights of way for that, doing the preliminary design. And as you can see by the dotted lines, they have some other interesting things they want to do. But for me, the most critical elements here would be we're out to Murray Hill Road now, okay? And I just spoke with the design and planning office at Binghamton University, excuse me, and they also have a grant in to build a piece across the front of the university from Murray Hill Road to Bun Hill Road. It will come across the main entrance, go around the 201 ramp there around the baseball and over to Bun Hill Road. So the key connection, in which was in the original plan, is to go from the university down by where the county bus garage is. There's an old section of the towpath, if you didn't know that, of Shenango Canal towpath that runs underneath the 201 bridge, okay, and would be very easy to grade and pave and do whatever. And that would get you over here to the river bridge, and we have the connection to the Vestal Rail Trail. So the exciting thing about this is if they can get this grant, they're going to have the money to be able to do all of the feasibility studies, a preliminary design, and also any of the right-of-way impacts and any of the possible permitting. So we have our fingers crossed, because if you think about this, if you can get these two pieces done, I mean, you've connected all of Johnson City. I mean, that river bridge is going to last for 1,000 years if you're just having people and bikes walking on it. It's not fully loaded coal trains anymore, okay? So that would be a critical element to get that river crossing, just like the South Washington Street Bridge was a really critical element in the Greenway, keeping that and not having it torn down and not having it redone for vehicles and just a pedestrian facility. So this is really exciting, and we have our fingers crossed. And I had a note that we should know by June or July whether they're going to get these funds. And what this could possibly add is an additional 12 miles almost to what's currently in place, which is nearly 17 when you look at what we have built. So go ahead. So there's some lovely pictures of the Greenway. People probably recognize a lot of these pieces. This is interesting here. This is new recently. The DOT connected Bevere Street to Front Street when they put the roundabout in, and there's a separate protected with a Jersey barrier for pedestrian connection from Bevere Street now through that old intersection and over the highway to Front Street. This is in Owego on the Riverwalk. This is the newly constructed Route 434 Greenway. People are familiar with Confluence Park. So go ahead, you can hit the next one.
The
Yeah,
one on the right,
the one on the right,
right bottom.
the right bottom is the Vestal Rail Trail extension. You get past the coal house, you go out and you get the next extension that goes over, I believe it's Choconut Creek in Vestal. Yeah, and that takes you out to Castle Gardens. The one above it is the Shenango River Promenade behind the Binghamton Plaza. Top pictures of Vestal Rail Trail.
Coconut Creek is by the Vestal Town Halls. Are we talking about the
Right.
same creek?
Right, yeah, yeah.
Coconut Creek, also known as Chubnut.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. A bit of local history.
The name of the Native American tribe.
Ah. Okay. How'd you end up at Choconut? That's another discussion. I guess. Okay, we'll go to the next one. All right, now I did a few slides here because this was a compilation presentation, and we used to tag team at Scott Riegel from BMTS, who's their regional bicycle and pedestrian coordinator, myself, and Michael Hoffman, the local landscape architect, and has been very involved with this and has done many of the designs. He designed Confluence Park as an example. So what this is, the circles there are locations for counters. Okay, in 2019, we have counters on the Greenway now. So it's important for all the naysayers. They know I'm involved with the Greenway. They know I spend a lot of time. They drive on the Vestal Parkway. Mark, I never see anybody there. How did we possibly spend all that money? You can hit the next slide. Why did we possibly spend that money? Well, you can go onto the county's website, go to BMTS, and you can get their annual report, okay, for the number of people that have used bicycles, pedestrians, scooters, whatever, have used Two Rivers Greenway. So hit the next slide, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you're a supporter of greenways. Because if you look at this, in 2014, that's 1.4 million people on all of these various elements of the Greenway, from the least used to the most used. And Vestal Rail Trail is at the top of the rung right now, but Washington Street Bridge, thousands and thousands of people. And this is just 1 year, 1.5 million people almost on all of these sections, okay? And since 2019, when it opened, I rounded up to 8.4. So for all the people that say, I never see anybody there, nobody uses it. Well, guess what? There's actual physical counters on the Greenway in those various locations in the red dots that you see on the presentation, and those are the numbers. So it's surprising in some instances, but it's not surprising as well. So, and we'd like to see those numbers continue to increase.
Do those numbers divide up by month or day or time or just by place?
Good question. We'd have to ask Scott, but I'm sure they probably do. I'm sure there's just like with traffic counts, we used to go out and count traffic. There's in traffic engineering parlance, there's a AM peak hour and a PM peak hour, and then there's design hours and things like that. So usually traffic, morning and evening, you get your most traffic, right? The rest of the day, it's kind of level. But Okay, you can hit the next one. So why create a volunteer-based group, which is what really we're trying to do, which is really why I'm here in my retirement, still continuing to stump and promote for the Greenway. This presentation was developed for a meeting we had about a month and a half ago, okay, with all of the stakeholders. So all of the municipalities, some of the hiking clubs, the Chamber of Commerce, Sierra Club was there, University was there, a whole broad spectrum of people. So this was directed sort of at that audience in terms of how do we start? And one, are you interested? Town of Vestal, City of Binghamton, Town of Shenango, Port Dickinson, Sierra Club, whatever. Are you interested in supporting this so that we can continue to maintain and enhance this greenway? So the things I had down when I did this part of the presentation for why a volunteer-based friends group to support municipalities. Okay, we've added a lot of infrastructure and they don't have necessarily the people and stuff always to maintain that. To engage the stakeholders, identify champions, develop an organizational structure, commit to a long-range strategy, and for that friends group to be a focal point for issues and concerns. Okay, so we envision having our own website, you know, we envision possibly even getting into a nonprofit status at some point if there's enough interest in that. Right now, if we chose to and we had enough traction, we could write grants because those grants could be passed through an individual municipality to be administered to do things on the Greenway. Like one of my pet peeves is the Route 434 Greenway section from downtown out to the university. There's not a single bench. There's not a single trash can. There's no pooper scooper stations. There's nothing. They just built it and kind of walked away and said, here you go, City of Binghamton, maintain it. You know, so those are the kind of things that we want to look at. So one of the things, again, is trail maintenance. And when we talk about trail maintenance, we're really talking about light maintenance. So litter, we just had an event the other day, last week, with the university, alumni, and faculty workers for their global day of engagement or whatever. I forget the exact name of it. But they have 14, 15 people came out and we went to the Route 434 Greenway and we picked up trash and we unstaked the trees that have been staked and we fertilized the trees and people worked for 2.5 hours and it was a great time spent. So when we're talking about trail maintenance, it's like these groups of people here. The two pictures in the middle bottom, those were from the United Way's Day of Caring. We got people out to come and clean the Greenway. Both of those were on the Shenango River Promenade behind 2 Court Street. If you hit the next one, trail enhancements. This is something we want to do as well. Some of these pictures that you see here, this picture and the one in the middle, we actually went out and got shrubbery and plantings to do on the Shenango River Promenade from basically Eldridge Street up to Sherry Lindsay Park. That was done. This is a great example, the one in the lower right. That was the Sierra Club. They built a pollinator garden at Confluence Park. And they put a lot of effort in it. They still maintain it. And again, it's a way to enhance, but it's also a way to engage. So when we look at trail enhancements, we're talking about, because sometimes they don't include these, you know, civil engineers, no knocking civil engineers, but they're like nuts and bolts people. You know, trees, benches, we're not thinking about public art, you know, all those kinds of, we're not thinking about those kind of things. We're building this thing, we're paving it, and we're moving on. Thank you very much. So when we talk about enhancements, we're talking about, like I said, benches, garbage cans. Signage is a really important thing. Something that's important to Rick over here, who's regaling me with again today, was river access for kayakers and canoers is something that you can do. I'm a big fan. I work with a group called the Department of Public Art doing murals and public art. Public art on the Greenway is like a really great opportunity, as well as tourism. You can hit the next one.
Minutes, so we have time for questions.
Okay, and so very quickly here, what you see here's some enhancements. Vestal Rail Trail. They moved the Rounds Coal House. These are some benches in Rochester on their art walk. So again, that's something that we can do. You can hit the next slide. Education and advocacy. So there's a lot of opportunities to educate the public, or, what's climate change, what's all this stuff? Well, flora and fauna, get them out on the river, help them see what it is, help them see all the garbage in the box spring that somebody threw in the river, and say this probably isn't like a good idea or something. So to get people out to educate, this is very interesting. Our guy here, the Bald Eagle, recently a great collaboration. Students at Binghamton University got money. They put together a project, and now you should go see it. It's over at MacArthur Park between the baseball field and the softball field where the parking lot is. Walk straight out. There's an eagle view in there. Okay, because right across from where this picture was taken at MacArthur Park, straight across the river, there's an eagle's nest. And you can see those eagles, and they have 2 chicks in there now with their little heads bobbing up. So really a wonderful opportunity to engage university students, engage the public, and help them. You can see a bald eagle through those things. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. So that's a good thing. Last thing I want to say about this is greenways are seen first and foremost as transportation and recreational facilities. Okay, we want them for transportation. We want to get people out of their cars. We want them to have a more active lifestyle. But also if you think about it, they're what people call the third space. So you have home and you have work and you have this third space where you can go and see and actually talk to people in person or something like that, or walk or meet somebody you didn't know or whatever. So that's good. So here we have this slide in here because back in 2012, we rebranded the Greenway. It used to be the Greater Binghamton Greenway. So we were going to go out to the public because we had got money to come up with a design guide for the sign. Okay, because signage is very important, whether it's directional, here's where you are on the Greenway, here's where this piece of the Greenway goes, or interpretive signing. There was a historic event here, or now we have signs over there that by the eagle viewer that talk to you about bald eagles and all of that kind of stuff. So that's very good. So we got some money and we went through the process of developing a design guide. That also included the development of our beautiful logo that we have there. And this was a lot of public involvement. We had lots of meetings. We went and talked to everybody. And a lot of the pushback we got was, hey, this isn't all in Binghamton. Why is this the Greater Binghamton? Because if you remember, that's sort of how we were trying to brand ourselves a number of years ago, right? And people said, they came up with the idea, well, the thing that's most common are the two rivers. So why don't we rebrand this as the two? So hence here we are. It's the Two Rivers Greenway. We have these herons in the area, even though we took a lot of heat because the logo, it looks white and people said that's an egret. That's not a heron. But hey, we got egrets here too. We have pictures. Okay, we'll show you there's egrets, but that was kind of a silly thing, but that's something that happened. But I think the logo is beautiful. And it was interesting during the development of it that the consultant out of Buffalo, Carlo Pesci from Synergy Graphics, said you have to have a logo that works at all kinds of scales, on a sign, on a t-shirt, on a hat, whatever. And I think they did a beautiful job of coming up with this. And we went through color palette after color palette on public meetings with, you can weigh in and vote on the colors you want. And this is what we came up with. So if you hit the next slide. And you can see there's what they call an entire family of signs that were developed for the Greenway, with the caveat that when a municipality built the project, we have this design guide. You would incorporate the signs into your contract. And when you built the piece, you would also do the signs, which is another thing that irks me about the Route 434 is the DOT built that. And they have like 2 signs and they're on ugly posts and it's just wrong. But that's me. So you can see the entire family of signs that we have. There's wayfinding signs. There's these interpretive signs. If you hit the next slide, you'll see these are beautiful, beautiful signs. This Confluence Park talks about the history and stuff. So as you walk and whatever, you have friends here, you're out doing stuff, you're riding your bike, you can interpret the local history and as well as direct people to where they need to go and help them understand where they are in the system as part of the Greenway. So next slide. And we're where you want it to be. A discussion.
Questions.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Did I misunderstand you when you said there is not yet a website?
No, there is not. It's something that we want to do specifically. Well, I probably did confuse you because on the county website, BMTS has their own page, okay, for planning and purposes and everything that they do, okay? So on that website, there is a lot of information about the Greenway, okay? But there's not the entire history, the entire network, the entire whatever. You can go there and there was a link to get those count programs. You can go and see what the counts were and where they were and probably find some more information like the questions that Susan had.
Download either of those 3 reports you showed. Are they available for download?
I think only the most recent one might be there, but I don't work at BMTS, so I'd have to check, and the county is very, funny about what they allow. So there is information about this on the county's website.
Also, you said that there's currently 17 miles.
Yes,
Do you know what like if they get the whole thing done, the projected total?
I think with what I mentioned, for those connections, like through the village of Johnson City, from the university to the river bridge, and then from the river bridge, the Vestal is already extending the trail east behind the Town Square Mall. The area's all been cleared and grubbed and graded, and they just have to finish that. So that'll bring you to like the Sycamore right there. So that section from Sycamore down behind the concrete plant over Vestal Road to the river is the next element that's in that study that they're going to look at. So if you think of adding the mileage through the village of Johnson City, getting from that river bridge up to Sycamore, and then you add in coming out of the university and then down the side road there, I always forget the name of that road, and using the towpath, that was about another 12 miles. So 12 and 16, 17. So you're almost up to 30 miles of pretty much contiguous. And that's what we want to do as we lobby and argue for projects, is that they connect, and we're building and connecting it out. Susan.
If I recall correctly, at one point there was an idea to connect this to the Tioga County border to go all the way to, if not Owego, at least Appalachian.
Yeah, in the original study, right now you can go from Vessel out to Castle Gardens. Okay, so there was a section in the original report that went from Castle Gardens, even though there's not a lot of land in some parts, from Castle Garden to Appalachian. And then there was a section from Appalachian where there's a boat launch in Appalachian at the bridge that takes you across the river to 17C. There was a segment planned from there to the eastern end of Marshland Road, and then from the eastern end of Marshland Road to the western end of Marshland Road. But then there's no way to be next to the river, so you would have to come out onto 434 to actually get to Owego. So those were in the original plan, but there was no appetite. I hope nobody's from Owego here, but there was no appetite in the town to promote any of those things. We had gone there and done a couple of presentations in the past, Scott Riegel and I, when I was still working, and there was just no appetite for trying to write grants to find money to build any of those sections. So right now you really limit, like Castle Garden is probably going to be the terminus on the west. But we did bludgeon DOT, and they boxed out and have wider shoulders on 434. And so a lot of the local bikers and stuff use Route 434 to get to Owego. It's very flat, and there are wide enough shoulders, because we always used to have to fight with engineers to pave a full shoulder and use the same material, asphalt, on the shoulder that's used for the cars. So it's not something that's bumpy for bikes or something, because you want to save, a few $1,000s or whatever. So those were part of it, yes.
And I grew up in Castle Gardens. That's the only reason I know this, because everyone knows I'm really bad at geography. But if you can easily at Castle Gardens get to the south side of 434 and then go all the way down to the Blue Dolphin and that Appalachian, which would get you almost to where Lockheed Martin is now.
Right.
If you went back,
Right. And I mean, the whole gist of doing the Greenway was to create separate facilities so you don't have conflicts. Because people in our country and in our state and in our county and municipalities have no respect for cyclists, okay? They just do not. So it's always difficult, and we always had to fight with civil engineers when we were even doing just, you know how they just mill and resurface? It's not a reconstruction, they're just milling and resurfacing to get them to have bike lane. Okay, or to get them to pave wider shoulders so it's more comfortable for a cyclist to be on the shoulder. And then we started putting in the milled in roadway delineator, i.e. the rumble strips, you know, so that caused problems for cyclists. So they had to build those with gaps.
Say that name again, please.
It's they're called MIARDs in the transportation world, milled in roadway delineators. That's the on the edge of your pavement, and now they put them in the center line. But
say rumble strips?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
those things, those are called milled in roadway delineators. And in their defense, they've eliminated run off the road accidents by like 95%. Because usually most people, you hit those, you're, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I'm here, I'm back, right? Okay, so they really are a great thing, but we found that cyclists complain about them because when they're trying to transition from being in a lane to being on the shoulder, because we know cyclists had a very strong lobby and they lobbied to be considered vehicles. So they can be in the road if they wanted. They're supposed to be in the road. You're not supposed to be an adult on the sidewalk, okay? But then that proved problematic when we put these in, and then you had to ride across them to get to the shoulder if you had been in the lane. Okay, so that was a little, you know, the stuff that comes up in transportation that you don't think of.
Do you take sections of that and retroactively put in, say, like an overpass, just a smooth area so people could cross, bicyclists could
Well, they've
cross?
done that. They've done that now. So there's every 100 feet or whatever, there'll be a gap,
Okay.
you know, just enough of a gap, 2-3 feet. So a cyclist could get off the highway and do that. So right now, you know, you've heard, if you've ever been on any teams, you heard the term storming, norming, and performing for the development of teams. Okay, we are like really storming right now. Like we're not really sure where we're at, but we really want to try and put some effort into creating a friends group. Okay, so that we can do a lot of these things, so we can assist municipalities. You know, part of that would include a website, okay, that and we're going to try and lobby the county to get it because they already have the infrastructure, and it could be on BMTS thing. You could just go there and get everything you want to know about the Greenway for a municipality. We want to try and encourage somebody. When we had the stakeholder meeting, it was interesting. Somebody was commenting on how nice Otsoningo Park was, or how nice the Vestal Rail Trail was. And I said, well, that's just a perfect example, okay, of having a mature system where one, the municipality is engaged and they're maintaining it. Two, and the public is engaged. I mean, Otsoningo Park as an example. I mean, you can get off at Bevere Street there and go all the way to Northgate Plaza in Otsoningo Park. Have embraced it. So there's walks, there's dog, you know, I mean, there's 1,000 things that they do. So our vision for these other elements, which aren't as well known or which aren't even built yet, is for them to be the same way. Okay, is to develop over time, to have more benches, more plantings. I'm a big fan. I want to see public art like they have, if you're familiar with the High Line. If you've never seen anything about the High Line in New York City, check it out because it's just incredible what they've done, interpreting, you know, plants and engaging the community and having public art as part of it and making it a real community resource. And that's another thing that's important to us, is that we're always looking at how can we create community. Okay, how can we get people out? How can we get people like you folks that came here today because you have an interest, right? So how can we do that more, especially in these crazy times that we live in? You know, you can find Democrats and Republicans and everybody else that love plants and bees and want to work on a pollinator garden. So, geez, isn't that a great idea? You know, so it's a way of bringing people together. Maybe people talk to each other that normally might not have talked to each other. You know, it's a way to engage younger people, students, university. You know, these things could be outdoor laboratories for the university, for Broome, for high schools, and those kind of things. So there's like an unlimited opportunities. You know, if we can continue to make people aware of it, that it's here, okay, that you could be part of it and you could adopt the place or get your group to take over a section and do whatever you want to do. So that's really where we're trying to get to. And like I said, we're just in the very, very initial stages of trying to gauge the community, but most importantly to the municipalities and elected officials to understand what kind of asset, you know, this can be for a community of our size to have this basically urban greenway. My daughter's in Pittsburgh now and they have a heritage trail there. And it's amazing. I mean, they're adding on to it all the time. It's developed, it's got public art, it's got history, it's got everything. It connects neighborhoods. It's really pretty impressive. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Very, very much.
Well, thank you for,
Mark Singh is the trails in the river corridor. And one of my things is the paddling along the river corridors. When you get off a trail because it ends and you're walking along, you can hop in your canoe and connect to the next trail because the river connects us all.
absolutely. And it's going to be here long after we're here too.
You'll hear, yeah, you'll hear about paddle607.com as water trails instead of hiking trails.
Mhm. Which is good.
And we're all working
We're all
toward
in
the
this
same thing.
together.
Get people outdoors. When you go out and enjoy something, then you own it and you'll take care of it.
You'll take care of it. Absolutely.